So let's get down to it, shall we? Look, I don't want to keep banging on about creativity and what it means, max Imaginicity. If you don't get it already, then you'll never get it. But if you want to be a creative storyteller, then you have to be actually really that. You have to be creative. You have to start using your imaginative noodle to get ideas. And so hopefully these exercises will help you get creative. So let me start with what I call the substitute item exercise in creative thinking. I like to be an early adopter of undeveloped technologies, and one adventure into a clumsily performed service led me into an altogether peculiar and even profound and yet productive creative direction. Because I was one of the first guys in Britain to sign up for online grocery delivery. I'm not talking about during the lockdown, I'm not talking about in the last 5 years, I'm talking about right at the very beginning. A lot of people don't know this, but an Englishman named Michael Aldrich invented online shopping in 1979. There wasn't even a World Wide Web then. Tim Berners-Lee hadn't invented it. In fact, he didn't invent it for another 10 years. But Aldrich's idea would be based on television and telephone. I didn't adopt online groceries in 1979, but I certainly adopted them very early and one of the earliest in this country. And one point I must address before I delve any further into this exercise, and any of these exercises actually, is that creativity is not a single product of thought or a single idea. A lot of people think it is, but it's not. It arises from an influx of thinner and perhaps less promising insights. So imagine the progress of your creative thinking as a great river. And it's a river that's been fed and it's been fattened by a smaller selection of random tributaries, and I think that these all converge in what I call the delta of understanding. And it's that delta of understanding that produces the key concept, not the single idea. And if you've ever taken part in a brainstorming exercise or brainstorming session, then you'll know what I mean by that, because in those kind of sessions, those very early proposals will sound quite quirky and quite ridiculous or just plain useless, but they all help to steer the conversation and to steer the direction, the motivation if you like, towards the workable concept. And by the way, the haphazard nature of those streams of consciousness and those streams of thought persuades some people to think that there is some kind of serendipity or magic in creating ideas, but there just isn't. Creating ideas is hard work. It's about drawing comparisons, interpreting what you feel, appraising your results, and planning for greater creativity and learning from experience. Anyway, I don't want to go on and on about a vigorous flow of associations, but they can lead to some fascinating conclusions. I want to move back anyway to my story about my very early attempt at online grocery shopping. So picture this, it was right at the beginning of the internet. I'm talking about the dial-up period. So people had very, very rudimentary websites, and I ordered some simple groceries to test it out. And I do remember that I ordered a dozen small eggs. I'm a cook, by the way, in case you didn't know, and I do all the cooking at home, and I need eggs all the time for my various different amazing recipes. Now please remember, this was in the very early days of online shopping. I know I'm saying it again. So I was experimenting as a customer, but I think they were experimenting as well as the grocery shop. Anyway, when I ordered my eggs, I did agree to the substitute. It had a little box which you could check, which said, would I accept a substitute? And I said yes. And I waited around, I think it was 4 days before it got delivered. Anyway, it got delivered by a nice man who came to the door with a box, and he had some stuff in the box. And he smiled at me, just about to pass over the box. He said to me, there are a couple of substitutes. I gave him a puzzled look and I examined my purchases, but I couldn't find my fresh eggs. I can't see the eggs, I told him. Yes, the item has been replaced, he replied. How can you substitute fresh eggs, I asked. I asked this metaphysically because I didn't really expect a sensible answer from him. Then I added, well, unless you replaced them with Easter eggs, I suppose. I could live with Easter eggs. But how can you substitute fresh eggs? He grinned and he pointed at a packet on the top and he said, potatoes. The packet he'd pointed to contained about 15 of those salad potatoes, little brown ones. They're the ones which you cook and then you put in a bowl with some mayonnaise with your salad. Potatoes, I said. I remained completely befuddled. I don't get it. I guess the people at the store thought they looked like eggs, he said. Looked like? I shook my head. That's craziness. Just because a thing resembles another thing, it can't represent it, can it? Sorry, buddy, he said. It's not my fault. You checked the box what said allow substitutions. That's true. But when I checked the box to allow substitutions, I said, I believed that my substitutions would be rational. I believed that my substitutions would obviously be usable for what they were intended to do. And also, you said a couple of substitutes. What was the other one? He pulled out a packet of dry spaghetti from the top of the box and he said, this. I said, what does that replace? He said, cocktail sticks. You'll have heard of comparing apples with oranges. It's an idiom which is used to explain what occurs when two items or group of items are insensibly linked with each other to produce something that might be illogical but nevertheless is superficially viable. But as we learn from my home delivery experience, the consequences of oddball categorization might lead to unexpected paradoxes. And funny enough, some of those absurdities, those absurd paradoxes, may be helpful in our creative thinking. I'll give you an example of this. The Spanish surrealist painter Salvador Dali substituted swans for elephants in a fantastic piece of work which was called Swans Reflecting Elephants, and I've got it on my site and you can check it on Google. He created a positively wonderful concept out of two things which almost don't go together, but they do. And even the artist had difficulty explaining what he'd done, and he tried, if he could, to explain his thought generation process for Swans Reflecting Elephants. He said it involved a spontaneous method of irrational understanding based upon the interpretive critical association of delirious phenomena. I don't know if he spoke like that, but I'm going to give him that accent. I'm sorry, Salvador Dali, if you spoke with a perfect English accent. Now, young thinkers might prefer to think about Dua Lipa and her 2017 New Rules music video, because in tribute, I think, to Salvador Dali, the protagonist, Dua, and her clique of girlfriends temporarily reshaped themselves into flamingos in the blue of the swimming pool that they stood by. And when I saw that, yes, it reminded me of Swans Reflecting Elephants, but it also reminded me of Alice in Wonderland, who, if you recall, was advised to use an upturned flamingo as a croquet mallet. And the hoops in the game of croquet she was playing were made of playing cards, and the balls were made of curled up hedgehogs. And of course that was in the garden that belonged to the Queen of Hearts. So what I'm telling you here is that labelling and categorisation might lead to some happy accidents and unexpected but exploitable ideas. I used the spaghetti as an impromptu cocktail stick, and funny enough it did work. In fact, it worked so well for my nibbles. I didn't use it to stick in the cocktail, but I did use it for my nibbles, for cheese and for silver skin onions. And I've used it since and it proves quite satisfactory, so maybe that does work. I also learnt, by the way, that you should never check the substitutes item box. So today's exercise is to try to find some corresponding substitute items in the basket of ideas that I've shared on my page. You need to go to my Facebook page, and that's where I'm going to put them. Try to link them all You might find that you're one of those thinkers who gets caught up in characterizations and conventions, but I want you to have a carefree and a playful approach to this exercise. I want you to try to break through. I want you to try to break free from any rules that you've set yourself about segregating things into pigeonholes based on preconceived notions, unconscious biases or expectations, because this is an exercise to free up your thinking. I want you to use all your senses for it, and there are 16 incongruous connections to make in the exercise. And you'll find the exercises in 2 blocks of pictures that I'm going to put on my Facebook author page, and also on a special page that I've set up for the Imaginicity exercises. Let me know how you get on. I'll provide some answers, if there are any, a little bit later on, but good luck with that. And don't forget, you can get some good creative ideas by substituting one item for another. Good luck.